Right, we're live. Hello, everyone. I'm Alfie. I'm replacing Harry tonight as he has a charity thing at work. Uh, Here is your panel for tonight. Jay, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Jamie. I'm from the Paddock Blues podcast. We're an Everton podcast we started, unfortunately, when Frank Lampard was the manager. It has got a little bit better. But yeah, just an Evertonian who goes the match and tries not to pull his hair out.
Louis,
Hi, my name is Louis. I am just a West Ham fan who loves to have a conversation about everything football. Love to talk about my club as well, and just love discussing the football.
yeah, fair enough. So today for the podcast, we are doing a Gameweek 16 preview. And to start it all off, we have Chelsea versus Everton. So obviously, Jamie, we'll let you talk about that one.
Yeah, it's obviously a tricky game, isn't it? Chelsea are waiting for any club to be. But I think if Everton were going to go there, we're going in there in sort of a rich vein of form. I think you can put that Newcastle defeat sort of as a bad day at the office. So, we've won 3 in the last 4, beat Man United after many years not beating Manchester United away from home. Then went to Bournemouth, which seems to be a bit of a bogey team for Everton at the moment, and got a good result there. Beat Nottingham Forest at home quite comfortably. So, I'm quietly confident going into the game at Stamford Bridge. They've had a bit of an up and down season, haven't they, Chelsea? They got beat by Atalanta in the Champions League, which I think they played the full strength squad, so that should help Everton. We've got a couple of players coming back in Idrissa Gueye and Burnham, both from suspension. So I don't think Everton should fear going to Chelsea, especially after the results we've had away from home. And I know we got beat by Manchester City, but we were very much in the game until, the cheat code that is Haaland decided that he wanted to play in a football match and he scored 2. So yeah, I think usually you go to Chelsea away and you're thinking, just sort of get out of there alive, especially with David Moyes. He hasn't got the best sort of record at a top 6 club, but it seems like he's changing that now a little bit. And if Everton want to sort of put a statement out of, we want to be in the European places, not saying Champions League, but like Conference League, Europa League, you've got to go and beat Chelsea. And Sunderland won there as well, so it just shows you teams can go there and win.
Yeah, what I think about Chelsea is that they're not very consistent at the moment. Like, I feel like they're losing games that they should really be winning. If you know what I mean, like, I think Chelsea are not on point at the moment, but they're still a good club. I'll be honest, like Chelsea, a good club, but they're just not at their best at the moment. I don't think. Louis, any thoughts about Chelsea versus Everton?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. Very tough, I think. Both sides need a win for the sake of their European fights. Chelsea more towards the Champions League, and as Jamie just said, a bit more Everton with the conference pushing towards those positions. Moyes loves to have a bit of a great start to the year, as he always does. I think it all depends when it comes to the team sheets at the beginning of the game. Obviously, Chelsea are without Caicedo because he's still suspended. And that is what makes me think Everton could go there and get a result. My whole thing is I hope from my time as a West Ham fan and watching Moyes as a manager that I would love to see him go to Stamford Bridge and not play defensive football. Not start with a back 5 and, play with 11 men behind the ball and maybe nick an early goal and just defend for the 90. I know Everton did that against Manchester United, but that was a little bit different circumstances. They had 10 men. I think Everton could get a result against Chelsea considering the inconsistencies, no Caicedo again. It's at the Bridge, which is sort of what gives them hope, but Everton have got the upper hand on form. And I think if I had to pick a team right now to get a win, I would go Everton. But if it was a draw, that wouldn't surprise me either.
Yeah, because obviously inconsistence from Chelsea. But obviously, next up we have Liverpool versus Brighton. How do we feel about that, Louis? Sorry, I couldn't say the name wrong.
It's another tough one. I mean, my football clubs played both these teams recently, and do you know what? Both oppositions have been poor. We drew to Brighton, and they didn't have a shot on target till the 88th minute. So they were quite bad at home, where a lot of people were saying they were difficult to play. and then we played Liverpool, and I think they played the most ugly football I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So it's a tough one. I think Brighton will nick it. I think Slot is under a lot of pressure. All the Salah stuff, he won't be
Yeah.
anywhere near the squad.
100%.
It's going to get to his head a little bit, I have a feeling, and I reckon Brighton will nick it because they've been on great form, Brighton, and I think they really would need that point. And as we saw with Sunderland, we just mentioned Sunderland went to Chelsea and got the points. Sunderland went to Anfield and nearly won. You know, they did draw in the end, but the win was nearly there. And I think Brighton was against West Ham was one of those games. They just had a little bad day at the office. Brighton, things weren't going too well for them. And I don't think Liverpool have the capabilities to in the midfield as West Ham did at this moment in time. So I put my money on Brighton getting a win.
Yeah, fair enough. Don't condone betting, as
Yeah,
I don't think gambling is a very good thing. But Jay, any thoughts on Liverpool versus Brighton?
Yeah, I just hope Brighton win. Yeah, I think. I'm all here for the Liverpool sort of downfall. They will be back. I've seen this movie so many times, but they'll be back somewhere. I think obviously the midweek game where they beat Inter Milan away from home, but Inter Milan are not known for an attacking side. Are they more of a pragmatic sort of team? You're on the counter attack, which I think played into Liverpool's hands a little bit. To be honest, my only concern is that the way Brighton sort of play, which is out from the back, and they don't really set up sort of with two banks of four, which Liverpool can't play against. It's quite expansive, which they can play against. They've got the players to sort of pick teams apart when it comes to that. But listen, Brighton, if anyone can beat Liverpool, I think everyone at the moment will want to play Liverpool. It seems like a bit of a circus. It seems like a bit no one knows what's going on. I think if the team sheet comes out an hour before and Salah's not in the team, it could have a, especially if you go 1-0 down and they look to the bench and Salah's not there, I think that could play in the player's mind as well. And, if Brighton go there and put a performance on like the Sunderlands have, like we did in the second half, like Nottingham Forest have, I don't see a reason why not Brighton can't go and win that. Danny Welbeck's, scoring goals. They've got really quick wingers as well. So I do fancy Brighton. I'd like a draw for our Liverpool, for our European hopes. But listen, I won't be worried if Brighton win. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I think Liverpool, kind of the same as Chelsea at the moment. They're really inconsistent, and obviously on top of what Louis said, the whole Slot versus Salah kind of thing.
Yeah.
On top of that, I would like to ask, who do you think should go, Salah or Slot?
I think they both should stay. To be honest, I think if they both stay, it gets worse and worse. But no, I don't think player power can win. I think you just set a really bad precedent of if a player doesn't interview, the manager gets sacked after it, and then he stays. I think footballers around the world have rubbed their hands together, thinking, well, listen, they've got to be at that level. As much as it pains me to say, Salah has been a top player, so they've got to be at that level to have that power. But for me, I think it's bang out of order. You're a football player at the end of the day. If he's that concerned about it, and he's that concerned about sitting on the bench, don't collect your wages then. If all you want to do is play football and that's your biggest, that's all you care about, well, don't pick up your wage and say I won't pay, get paid until I play and see what happens there. But he won't. And I can understand where Salah's coming from slightly because he wants to play football. But listen, you haven't been playing well at all. You've been terrible. So the manager's got every right to sort of say you're not playing, and just because you're Mo Salah doesn't mean you're guaranteed to start every week. So for me, I'd love it to continue, but I do think Slot will win this one.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. Louis, any more to add on to that?
I don't know. I think I'm one of those. I've seen my club. I've seen other clubs be involved in a lot of situations where it's either a disagreement with the manager or something's going on behind the scenes or it's another event. I would like to hear more information on it. I believe as time passes on, we're hearing a lot more about it. And I think the situation was bad and Carragher's comments made it even worse. And I think it's all sort of built up. And I would love to sort of scrap it down and look at the individual bits. And I want to know where did it go wrong? Where did it happen? Because there are some rumours that was Liverpool deliberately dropped him and they were hoping to sell him to Saudi in January, whilst just letting him rot on the bench. And I would like to know if that was true. Obviously, these are things we probably won't get answers to as fans, but I do believe that no player is bigger than a football club. But I would really like to know the circumstances behind it, because, in my opinion, there are things to say that he does have an agenda. That Slot does have an agenda against Salah, because, for example, when they were playing Leeds and he was on the bench, and Leeds have just equalised to make it 2-2. Why would you not bring on Salah?
Yeah.
They would end up getting a goal, but there was a few minutes in between there, and I just think there's these small moments that I would like answers to. I think Slot will win. I also think a lot happens. A lot depends on what happens at Real Madrid with Xabi Alonso. There's that whole situation developing, and I believe if he's sacked by Real Madrid, we could see Slot go. But that's another whole situation, and I do think in this case the manager will win. But I would like to know what's more going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think Salah was wrong for saying what he said about, because obviously Salah has been awful past few days. So obviously, yeah. Right, moving on to Burnley against Fulham. Jay, how do you feel about that?
It's a bit of a tough one, isn't it? Burnley away is always tough for anyone. I thought Fulham were they scored 4 goals against Manchester City, which isn't an easy feat, especially getting beat 5-1 at the time, to sort of keep your heads in the game and keep playing, nearly in the end getting the draw. I did watch them. I think it was against Crystal Palace. They looked okay. I know Marco Silva, and he does play sort of good football. He just didn't. He was at Everton at the wrong time. We weren't ready for Marco Silva, but I just think Fulham should have enough for Burnley. I don't see Burnley sort of staying in the Premier League, unfortunately for them. I just think Fulham's quality, they will sort of just get overrun. I think the longer it goes in the game, quality from Harry Wilson or Iwobi or Jimenez, they've got the players to hurt Burnley, so I do see Fulham winning that one.
Yeah. Louis, what do you think? Sorry,
I think I'm actually the other way around. I think we all know, as I've just mentioned, I do think going to Burnley is a very tough place to go to. And I think Burnley, they've lost their last 6 in a row. And I do think it's a little bit harsh. I spoke about on the podcast last week about Burnley's performance against Newcastle and how they were quite unlucky to not actually get a point. And I thought against Palace, they didn't deserve to lose 1-0. If you look at the stats and saw the game, it wasn't really a loss-worthy performance. And Fulham have been on some good form and they've got some good results, but I've got a feeling Burnley could tip them over here. They've got some good players. They've been good on the stats. They've just been very unlucky recently. I still don't think they're good enough to stay up. I do think they will be one of the teams to go down. Burnley, I'm talking about here. But I have a feeling they might be able to get something against this Fulham side, which could have got something against Palace, as mentioned. They did play very well, Fulham, I thought, but sometimes things don't work out for them. Sometimes things haven't worked out for Burnley. So I think if you put the pair against each other, it will definitely be a close game for sure. But I've got a feeling Burnley will edge out on top.
Yeah, I agree. Right. We've got Arsenal versus Wolves here. I feel like Wolves are guaranteed to get points from a big team eventually. And I really hope that it is Arsenal, because obviously, as a Spurs fan, I don't want them to win the title. So I can still carry on saying, won a trophy, stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. But that's me. What do you guys think?
If you're on Lewis, yeah.
I'll go. I think this is not going to try and say it'll be the underdog victory here. It's at the Emirates, and I think Arsenal will win. Wolves have looked hopeless in loads of games. I thought when they played Aston Villa and Nottingham Forest, they were quite unlucky to maybe not get some draws out of that. But against Man United, they looked abysmal and they looked hopeless. And I have a feeling their woes will just continue on. Arsenal are in good form. It's at the Emirates. I don't see any shock result happening here.
Yeah.
No, I think the same as Lewis. To be honest, it's going to be if I was Wolves, I'd just try and keep it as under 3 as much as possible. I watched them on Monday Night Football, and they looked shocked when they'd scored. They looked like they didn't know what to actually do or celebrate or how to set up after they'd scored. And there's a Man United and the great shakes. They just picked them apart. Now, I think we're talking about one of, if not the, sorry about this, but one of the best teams in Europe at the moment. But certainly the best team in the Premier League, going against arguably one of the worst the Premier League's ever seen. I just think it's going to be a bit of a landslide. I think you'll see Gyökeres. I think you'll see Saka getting on the score sheet. Rice. They just have far too much. Arsenal. I think Wolves are gone. I just think they're gone. And if you're a Wolves player, I've been here as an Everton fan. If you're a Wolves fan or a Wolves player, you just forget about this weekend and sort of write it off.
Yeah. John has just said here, Arsenal 5, Wolves 0. What do you guys think of that? I think Arsenal scoring 5 is a bit too much, considering they only scored 4 against Tottenham, which are probably around the same skill level at the time. Because I don't even want to think about that match. But what do you guys think of this score?
But I'd agree. I think Arsenal. I know Arsenal obviously dismantled Tottenham, but that was a very poor Tottenham side, and it looked like I don't think you'll ever see Tottenham do that again. It was just unfortunate it was against Arsenal. But Wolves have just not got anywhere near the quality to keep Arsenal out, and I just think if that first one goes in within 5 minutes, it's just going to be a bit of a landslide, as I said before. And I think you'll find players like Gyökeres getting on the score sheet, and Arsenal are due to really hurt someone, like 5-6s, and put all the chances their way that they do create. So it could be this weekend.
I think considering the way that Wolves play, I've watched quite a bit of Arsenal this season, but one of the games that I can compare them to is when they played West Ham. We lost 2-0. We played a very defensive line, and we managed to suck up those attacks that they had. And I don't think Wolves have that capability with their squad and their defence in particular. I don't think it will be a battering. I think a lot of times we've seen like Arsenal play these lower relegated sides in the past. We've always said, they're going to batter this opponent or something. It'll be like a 5-0 game. And it would usually end up just being 1 or 2 goals. I think it might be 2-0 or 3-0 to Arsenal. I don't think it'll be anything crazy. It'll probably be one of those games they play maybe a little bit of a rotated side, get some rest. They've got cup games coming up soon and Champions League, and they'll be resting from that. They've also got their own injury problems. So I think it'll be a bit more of a conservative result, but definitely an Arsenal win.
Yeah, I agree. With Crystal Palace versus Man City next. I think Man City will win this, but not sure about. But I don't know. I feel like it could be a draw as well because they're both pretty strong sides at the moment. I think. What do you guys think? Well, Jay, what do you think first?
I can possibly see Crystal Palace winning. They seem to have a little bit of a hoodoo over Manchester City, and that Real Madrid game, as comfortable as it looked for City, it does take a lot out of you. I think Crystal Palace are playing Shelbourne right now, which shouldn't really get them out of second gear to beat a team like that. No disrespect, they're a Premier League team, and it's always horrible going to Selhurst Park. Well, not for us, we always have a good record there, but it's. I know it's Manchester City, and listen, if Manchester City turn it on, no one beats them. It's just as simple as that. If you're talking about arguably the best striker in the world playing up front, and if he turns it on, I don't think anyone can keep them out. But it's just a tricky game for Manchester City. I think they wouldn't want to go to Palace straight after Real Madrid, and Palace played at 5 at the back, which he still hasn't seemed to have mastered. Pep with the Chelsea Tuchel team and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if Palace got a result. I really wouldn't. City do seem a bit inconsistent when you think your money's on them. They draw or they get beat by a Leverkusen and stuff, games like that. So it really wouldn't surprise me with a draw or Palace win.
Yeah. Louis, what do you think?
I've got to agree with Jamie there. I think he's spot on. Palace, they're currently playing Shelburne at the minute, 3-0 up, rotated side. I mean, it's a walk in the park for them at the moment. But I think City, it's one of those. There was that problem at the beginning of the season where Haaland was the only one who was really scoring goals for them. And eventually, as the season's gone on now, they've sort of unlocked the other potential of Doku, Foden, and Cherki as their, other outlets rather than just Haaland. And I think if they can use them to the full ability at Crystal Palace, they could wipe the floor, which is rare to say with the Palace side. But considering it's actually at Palace, it will be a much, much tougher game. I actually wrote down a score prediction saying 1-1 because I think Palace have been in real trouble when they're at home to teams, and sometimes they'll have that occasional slip up, but it's the question of if they don't make that slip up, they'll be all right, I reckon. And the fact they're playing a rotated side against Shelburne sort of tells you all you need to know about how seriously they're trying to take this game against City, which they obviously haven't had the opportunity to do just playing Real Madrid.
Yeah, I think Real Madrid aren't like their best side at the moment. Like, there's definitely been a better Real Madrid side, but I do think it's still a tough game to go to, if you know what I mean. Like, but coming up next, Forest versus Spurs. The only thing I really want to say about this match is that I hope we win, and I wish that Forest still were under Ange, so then that the players would be able to see Ange again. Obviously, that'd probably be nice because of what Ange did. But Louis, what do you think about this match?
Unfortunately for me, which is sort of not something I'd usually say, but unfortunately for considering the club I support, I believe Forest will win this one. They've just won. I know Spurs won last night in the Champions League. Forest have just won in the Europa League for a last-minute goal. But I don't know. It's at the Forest ground, and I just think it's sort of a Sean Dyche game to win. Poach a goal early on and then sit back and invite the pressure, which Spurs don't seem that they can put on people this year. Maybe in recent
100%.
games they have a little bit more than other times, but I think Forest might be compact enough to keep them out. And I don't really hope so because West Ham are in a relegation fight with Nottingham Forest. But I do think Spurs will struggle. And, the last time Spurs sort of faced a side that has got similarities with Forest has been Newcastle, and Spurs were very lucky against Newcastle. So I do believe, I've got a feeling Forest will get the win.
But I could touch up on what you said. I feel like when Spurs concede an early goal, we just don't seem to stop another goal from happening. Like, we concede one, and we just go, we just keep on conceding. Like, saw it against Arsenal, saw it against PSG. Like, as soon as we go one goal down against any club, we just lose all composure and end up losing the match. So I think Frank needs to work on the players' composure and stuff.
I'd just like to quickly add to that. I do believe that it could also go the other way around, though, in the sense that you're talking that element of confidence that Spurs have. Forest are also the same. We saw against Liverpool, they got one. They got the gear to keep going. They got one against Leeds. They got the gear to keep going. Same with Malmo in the Europa League. But when it came to playing teams like Brighton and Everton, once they conceded one, they go on to concede more. So it honestly could be a situation of first goal wins, because I think either team will bounce up on their goal that they would have started with. But again, another weird set of fixtures this week.
Yeah. John and Brownie EFC have both said 2-0 Spurs. Not exactly. I don't know. I feel like we might concede because we're away, but I think it might be either 2-1 or 3-1. I think that's my genuine hope, but I think it could also be a draw, knowing Spurs. Jay, what do you think?
Yeah, I do think Tottenham will win. I think Spurs have. The thing with Spurs is they don't like sort of playing teams that come at them, put them under pressure, put the back four under pressure. The only worry for Spurs is the corners. I've watched Sean Dyche's team for a couple of years now, and he sort of works on them. Vicario doesn't look like he's comfortable with corners. If he can sort that out, I don't see Nottingham Forest scoring. I think they were very poor against Everton. We could still be playing now, and I don't see them scoring.
Yeah.
Tottenham will enjoy having the ball, which they will have against a Nottingham Forest side. They will have the ball, especially a Sean Dyche team. And I think they've just got the quality around the pitch just to see Forest off. You might be, even if Forest score to get the first goal, I know what Sean Dyche does. He retreats. He puts 2 banks of 4. I think Spurs with Javi Simmons and Richarlison and all these type of players, they will get in behind Spurs and Forest. Sorry, and I do think Spurs will win. I can see a 3-1, 2-1 sort of thing.
Yeah. I can't remember what I was going to say now. Yeah, no. Just moving to the next one. Sunderland versus Newcastle. I believe this is a derby. So, and I'm pretty sure they're both contending for either Europe. I think they're contending for Europe at the moment. They're both up in the table. So I think it'll either be a close game or very heavily sided on one side. What do you guys think?
I hope Sunderland win. I'd like Sunderland to win. I think they deserve to win that game, that type of game. They've been brilliant. They've been a bit of a fresh of breath air, isn't he? Fresh breath air in the Premier League at the moment. Everyone sort of tipped them to go straight back down again, and they haven't. They've just sort of said, "Well, we're not going anywhere. We're here for a reason." I can see a Sunderland win. I see that place absolutely rocking. Again, Newcastle have had to go to Germany and play by Leverkusen, which went to the very end of the game. The last thing they want to do again is go to the Stadium of Light and play in that atmosphere and that hostility. And Sunderland are a very, very good side that are playing. They're on the crest of a wave,
100%.
and I don't see a reason why Sunderland can't go there and puff the chest out and go, actually, you know what? We don't care how long we haven't been out the Premier League for. We're here and we're not just going away. We want to win this game and put a statement out. Listen, you beat your local rivals. That's the biggest statement you can do. And if they can do that, then people start turning their head and going, they're here to stay.
Yeah, just got to quickly answer a question. Then we'll let Lewis talk about the match. Do we see Frank being sacked as a realistic thing if things continue to be terrible? I think Frank just needs a bit more time. So we've seen with Arteta at the start with Arsenal, he was terrible. But now after he's been given time, he's doing really well with Arsenal. He's contended Champions League. I think 4 seasons now, is it? Because I think it's even though it's early on, I think it's safe to say Arsenal will be getting Champions League again. So I think that Frank just needs a bit of time. Obviously, I know that he's come from another Prem team, but I feel like managing Spurs is a big thing considering we keep on just going through with managers constantly. So I feel like we need to just settle on with one manager and just see how things go for a year or so. What do you guys think?
I think he deserves more time. I think the league position that Spurs are in at the moment is not an accurate representation. People will look at the table and say, right, Spurs are 11th. Yes, they are, but they're also 4 points off Champions League position as we speak. So it's so close in the league right now that it's impossible to say anything. I think Frank may have been underwhelming to what Spurs fans might have expected. Some Spurs fans, I should say, considering that I personally know a lot of Spurs fans that didn't have a very high expectation for this season. And given, obviously you won a European Cup last season, but in terms of league position, any improvement on that would have been successful. I don't think it was realistic to see you finishing, 16th, 17th, and then straight into the top 4. It would have been a very unlikely turnaround, regardless of which manager you got, because loads of other teams are good now. We've seen Palace, Villa, Newcastle, Chelsea, Man United are doing well this season. Everton, Brighton are doing very well. Sunderland, all these teams are doing very, very well and are fighting for the European spots. So it's competitive, and it will be at this current trajectory. It will come down to the last day about who gets where. So I think it'd be harsh to get rid of
Yeah.
Frank now, especially given the fact he's got more wins than losses
Yeah.
this season, especially in the Prem.
Yeah. From what you said about how close the Premier League is and stuff, I feel like I'm glad to see that like there's an actual challenge in the Premier League instead of it being like each team is like a certain amount of points above the other team. You know, like it's like the Championship in a way. Like it's really close. So, like anything could happen last game of the season. Like I feel like we haven't seen a Premier League like that for a few years now. It's always been Man City, Liverpool, top three kind of thing. You know, like so I'm glad to see a bit of change, especially with Sunderland in like top four. Jay, anything to say?
On the Thomas Frank thing, yeah,
Yeah.
I would give him time. I personally think he would be a perfect fit for Tottenham. Spurs are. I know recently they've sort of chopped and changed managers because they're chasing that sort of trophy which they did get last season, but I think we can't forget that they did finish 17th last season as well, and were
Yeah.
poor in the league. And Thomas Frank is a manager who likes to get his claws into every part of a football club. Let's not, we've got to have it right that he had everything to do with Brentford. I know, listen, you're talking about two different football clubs, size of them, but everything went through Thomas Frank at Brentford. He had everything set up the way he likes it. So I think if Tottenham can give him that time to sort of get his data analysis in and get his certain players in and work with the players he has got, I think he'll be a very good manager for Spurs. I really do. He's just got to give him
Yeah.
that time to let the project manager get the project up and running and not just go, right, see you later, because it didn't work for the first 6 months. Well, Thomas Frank isn't that type of manager. He's a manager that's there for a while, so he can put his blueprints into a football club, and I think Tottenham would be a really good fit for them.
Yeah, I like Frank. I think obviously I respect Ange. I like Ange for Spurs, but I think it was very safe to say that he was more focused on Europe than he was the league, which I feel like isn't very good in the manager. Obviously, he got Spurs their first trophy in 17 years. First trophy I'd actually ever seen in my life because I'm only 17.
Yeah.
So I think Ange will always have somewhere like to be respected by Spurs fans, but I just don't think he gave his all in every aspect for Spurs. But yeah, we all love Ange. But right, coming up, West Ham versus Aston Villa. As a kid, I used to think these were the same team because of the colours. But obviously, Louis, I'll give this one to you.
It's going to be a tough one because West Ham are in quite good form actually, and Villa are in good winning form. West Ham have only lost one in their last six, and that was to Liverpool, and Villa are on a 7-game win streak. So it will be a tough game. I'm actually quite glad that West Ham are at home, which isn't something I thought I'd say because we are quite bad at home usually. But, we've been all right at home recently. I think Nuno got it quite wrong against Liverpool, and we were forced into positions where we didn't really want to be. I don't think this is a write-off for West Ham. I think considering where we are in the table at the moment, we can't view any game as a write-off. And I think a lot of teams that come to our ground will give a good run. We managed to beat Newcastle. We gave them a good run for their money. And I think against Villa, we will, provide the same sort of effort. If I had to give you a score prediction on the spot, I would say probably a draw. I won't predict my team to lose. As I never will, but we've got some good players. This is sort of the last set of players we'll have of a good chance of before they leave after AFCON. We lose Wan-Bissaka and Malik Diouf, which are two crucial players, and we will not have two sets of fullbacks until they return, which will be costly for us. But I know Villa are obviously in incredibly good form, and they're pushing for, if you give them 3 points, they're on the same points as Arsenal. So obviously they are in title contention. I don't think whether they will win it or not, that's the thing. But it would be ludicrous to say they're not in title contention. Every time we've played Villa, it's always been a very close game. We haven't beat them in a while though, but it will be a very close game.
Yeah, I agree. I think Villa, they had I don't want to say they had a bad start to the season, but considering expectations and stuff, I don't think Aston Villa had the greatest start to the season. But they're obviously coming out of their shell a bit and bringing themselves up. and like improving on that. So, Jay, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we spoke before about sort of Arsenal and Wolves, and for as bad as Wolves are, you can't sort of give any sort of credit to them to go, well, they might get there and win. But Aston Villa are playing well, but I do think it is a really tough, tricky away day, especially after playing in Europe. Any team that plays in Europe midweek don't want to play away; they want to be at home. And to go to West Ham, who Lewis will know will be fighting for every point, because right now they all matter. They matter from beginning of the season, but that sort of period of, well, it's the beginning of the season, I think that's finished now. These are where every game matters, every point matters, because you don't know where you're going to end up at the end of the season. I don't think West Ham are going to sort of show Villa the respect that they think they're going to get. I think they're going to sort of West Ham go, well, no, we want to be where yous are, and we're gonna have to beat yous to sort of pull away from the relegation zone. So I do think West Ham have got a really good chance. I do think, listen, if Aston Villa turn it on, of course they're a very good side, but West Ham have got the players as well. So I'm gonna put my neck on the line, and I'm gonna say West Ham 2-1.
Yeah, valid. Louis happy about that one.
Easy, get in there.
Yeah, obviously, I genuinely couldn't give a score prediction, to be honest. I've not really watched much from either team. All I know is that they're both on good form, like what Lewis said. Next up, we have Brentford versus Leeds United. I think this will be a pretty close game. I'm not sure, because I also haven't watched either of these teams play yet. But from what I'm seeing, I think it will either be a Brentford win or a close game. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, it is a hard game, but you know what? Brentford are probably the surprise package, aren't they? I think everyone had tipped them to go down. They'd lost Frank, they'd lost Mbeumo, they've lost Wissa. Norgard went to Arsenal, the captain. I think everyone was like, yeah, they're gone. I think everyone expected them to be where Wolves are now, to be honest, and they haven't. So, fair play to them for that. But Leeds are coming off a very good weekend. Drawing with Liverpool last minute, beating Chelsea at home. I think that their confidence will be sky high. Calvert-Lewin looks like he's scoring goals again. So, yeah, it's a bit of a mad one. That's either going to be 0-0 or 4-4. It's just one of them type of games. It really is. So, yeah, I'm gonna say 2-2 that one.
Yeah, Lewis, what do you think?
I think he's spot on there. I was going to say exactly the same thing. It looks like a game. It'll either be 0-0 or about 4-4. It's a 6-pointer for Leeds, I'd say. I think Brentford, if you compare currently so far the sides who have the chance of staying up more of Brentford or Leeds, I think a lot of people would pick Brentford, which is why I would call it a 6-pointer for Leeds. It would really close that gap from them in the relegation zone. They're only 2 points above it at the moment. A win would obviously put them 5, assuming results elsewhere would go their way. It will be tough because I don't think they're at Ellen Road. They're not Ellen Road. They're at the Brentford Stadium, G-Tech. Which is why I think they will struggle slightly, because they've been really good at home, and away they've sort of struggled to get that same sort of shift. We saw they were able to beat Chelsea and come back against Liverpool, which is massively impressive, scoring a total of 6 goals across those 2 games. But can they replicate it away? Not really. They've lost their last 3 away: City, Forest, and Brighton. I think it was they've lost against. So it will be tough because Brentford are quite good at home as well. So on paper, I would put it down as a Brentford win. But if I saw the scoreline was 4-4, it genuinely wouldn't surprise me. It does just screams as one of those games.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coming up, we've got the last match of the podcast, well, not podcast, the game week, which is Man United versus Bournemouth. At the start of the season, I was following Bournemouth quite a bit. They were on form. I think Semenyo was ripping up the league every match, but I don't think he's doing that well anymore. I think he's had his 10 minutes, as people say. Like, I don't think he's on form anymore, but I still think I think it could be a draw, because I think Man United and Bournemouth are both, I think, pretty mediocre teams at the moment, because obviously Man United had a terrible start, but Bournemouth had a good start. But now I think Bournemouth aren't doing too well, Man United are doing well. So I think they're both kind of polar opposites in teams, I think. So I just want to know what you guys think. Score prediction. I would say it'd be a draw, if I'm honest. So just let me know what you guys think, Lewis.
I'm leaning towards a Bournemouth win here. They're searching for their first win since October. But they've had, against Chelsea, they were the dominant side. Very, very dominant side against Chelsea. They really picked up from their past performances. You know, against West Ham, they got quite lucky, 2 late goals, 1 for a penalty. Against Sunderland, they dropped the ball. Against Everton, I'll let Jamie speak on that one. And but against Chelsea, they looked really, really good. They should have won the game. I thought they were very unlucky to walk away with 2 less points than they should have. Against Man United, I think gives them an opportunity. When Manchester United played West Ham at home, they looked nothing but off par. They didn't look like they were providing anything spectacular. You know, against Wolves, they actually created some really nice goals, and I thought tactically they were very good, but they didn't implement those tactics against West Ham. West Ham managed to park them out of the game. And I think Bournemouth will do the same here. I think they could cause them some real trouble on Monday night. And I think this will be their first win since October. So I see them getting 3 points.
Yeah, okay. That's not ridiculous to say. I do think that's a very good thing to say. Jay, what do you think?
Yeah, both teams, when we played them, we just were the better team. I haven't said that. Bournemouth gives me shivers down my spine every time I see that word. And, you know, to go when we went there and won, it was a shock. Listen, that was probably the worst performance I've seen from Bournemouth for a while. But I think Everton sort of dominated the midfield so much that they couldn't get on the ball. Manchester United looked toothless in attack. This is why I think Wolves are in for a terrible time, because, you know, if Man United are scoring 4 against you away, I think, you know, you're in a bad place. Bournemouth are one of them teams as well. If they get an early goal, the Old Trafford crowd sort of starts moaning and groaning, turning. You know, they'll turn the screw on Manchester United. They'll just keep going and going and go. It'll go to 1-0 to 2-0 to 3-0 very, very quickly. Because they won't just sort of sit on the laurels and go, right, well, we've got our goal, let's sit back. That's not the way Areola plays football. So I can see Bournemouth winning. Man United, for some bizarre reason, don't like playing at Old Trafford. And Bournemouth, was, for a madness, just seemed like they enjoy playing there as well. So I can see Bournemouth getting the result.
Yeah, I'd still, even though you've both said the exact same thing pretty much, like Bournemouth winning, I still think it might be a draw. But obviously, that wraps up all of the matches for today's podcast. Obviously, sorry it's a short one, but there's not so much I can do. I'm not very good with this talking stuff. Jay, is there any socials you'd like to shout out or anything before you go? Well, before we go, sorry.
Yeah, just a podcast one with the Paddock Blues podcast. We're on, you know, all social media, Instagram, X, TikTok, Blue Sky. You can find us on all audio platforms. All your podcast platforms are on there as well. If you go to the Sports Social Network, we're also part of the team in there. So yeah, everywhere really, just drop us a follow, give us a listen if you're an Evertonian. If we get beat and you're an opposition fan, come on and me and Paul and Peter, who we do with rant and rave, and there hasn't been that much so far this season, but yeah, no, that's where you can find us.
Louis, have you got anything?
Yeah, for me, I'm just on the Twitter really. I got a West Ham website as well, westhamfans.org. But also on Twitter, just Louis and then VA-NNN, and that's all really.
Yeah, okay. Obviously, thank you everyone who listened in. Obviously, chatters, thank you for speaking with us and giving your opinions. And everyone else, have